I don't know if you were with me early in the week, but um, apparently I use the phrase, one of my favorite verses is blah, 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 when I talk about some passage of the scriptures that relates to whatever psychological problem we're talking about. And so I thought, well, why not? Since I'm always talking about a thought for the day, why don't I show where that's talked about in the Bible? Because that's kind of the way I think. Well, today's is entitled True Confessions. True Confessions. Now, why did I name it that? Well, let me give you the verse. Here's the verse. Ready? It's out of the book of James, one of my favorite verses. It goes like this. James 5:16. It says, confess your faults to one another so that you may be healed. Confess your faults to one another so that you may be healed. Now, did you know people get healed every single day? And they don't even realize when they go see their shrink or they go have coffee with their best friend or after a trauma, they call somebody on the phone or they go to their support group and they've, you know, blown it in way or life hasn't worked in some way. And they talk about stuff and they get healed from talking about it. They don't even know they're doing a spiritual exercise that God ordained. But part of the reason is we don't understand confession. We think of confession as like you're one of these cop shows and they got you in the room with the light shining in your face and they're leaning over the table and the cop is saying, but you were there, weren't you? And you did it, okay, I did it. I'm sorry, I did it. We kind of break and admit to it like it's a tug of war and the law is coming at you and this is you. And finally, okay, I confess, meaning ... you found the guilty party. You found the guilty party. Well, that's not true confessions. Not in the way the Bible talks about it. And not in the way that a good shrink would talk about it. And not in the way that all the science of how people get well would talk about it. Because you know what? When you're in your shrink's office, or you're trying to get over a depression, or you're trying to, change your life, and you got some patterns that are faulty, which is what the passage says, confess your faults or your lackings or whatever word you want to put there, stuff that's going wrong. Nobody really cares about guilty or not guilty in terms of we're going to fine you. You go to the doctor and he says, does it hurt there? You don't worry about, well, should I confess? Okay, fine. Okay, doc. All right, fine. Okay, it worked. It does. It hurts, right? It's like I'm coming clean. Okay, it hurts. Like I admitted it. That's not what confession is. Confession in the way that heals, it basically means true confession. In other words, all we're doing is we're aligning ourselves to reality. And the word literally that's used in the Bible, confess means to, are you ready for this? It means to agree with. Agree with one another. Now think about this. What if you read the verse like it was actually written? Agree with one another about what's wrong with you so that you can get better. That's a pretty good paraphrase of exactly what it says. Now, here's what I would like for you to get out of today. A couple of things. One is you can't do confession in a phone booth. Well, I take that back because a phone booth does have a phone in it. I bet some of you that are listening to me are too young to even know what a phone booth is. Isn't that weird? You can't do it in a closet. How about that? You can pray in a closet, the Bible says. Go into your prayer closet. Why? Because God's there. But see, this verse, it says, agree with one another about what's wrong, what you got to change, so you can get better. Well, agree with one another means you're not by yourself. You're actually talking to somebody about, you know what, I screwed that up. I could have done this better. I need to change here. I need to take some steps to A, B, C, and D. I've been putting this off, or I've been avoiding that. Or I didn't confront here where I needed to confront. Or I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. See, confession means that we're telling somebody, and there's an agreement because they get it. So here's my question to you. If you got a good shrink, that's what's happening, right? Go find somebody that agrees, yeah, this is a problem. We got to work on this. This is what we got to do about it. So the first thing about true confessions is that you can't do it alone. You got to find somebody and get them in the room. But secondly, don't do it with a cop, metaphorically speaking. This isn't a legal exercise. This is a healing exercise. See, a legal exercise would be like taking a drug test if you were a bus driver, right? Okay, I confess, I used last night, so I can't drive the bus for 29 more days. That's a confession on the legal side. But if you can't get off dope and you go to your shrink and you say, hey, I used last night, who cares about legal or not legal? What we're trying to do is deal with the drug problem. You see the difference? And when I'm calling it true confessions, I want you to get to the truth of how true confessions work, because true confessions work by doing them in the true way that they were meant to work, so you can get to the truth. So what's the truth? I got a problem. So you got to get with somebody who really, really aligns with and understands the reason that we're talking is not to shame you. The reason we're talking is to make it better. To make it better. Agree with one another about your faults, about what's hurting, about what's wrong, so that why? We can get better. Confess your faults to one another so that you may be healed. Now, what's the opposite of this? Well, a couple of things. One is disagreeing. See, when somebody tells us, you could have said that differently, or you could do this differently, or why don't you do this or that, or I think you got an issue with, or here's a problem, or we can just stay in denial and disagree with every time reality tries to tell us that something is wrong. That's one way we can screw this up. We can disagree. We can be in denial. Here's another way to screw it up. We can know full well it's a problem and walk around with it silently and never confess it. In other words, never agree with anybody or have anybody agree with us. Here's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to normalize opening up about what you're struggling with. And the big promise here from the Bible and from science is when we start to open up about these pus wounds inside, that's how we get healed. And a lot of times, this is not a popular message today, by the way. I don't mean today, Wednesday. I mean today. That a lot of times what's going on with us has a lot to do with how we need to change versus how somebody else needs to change. And I 100% am on the side, if you've ever read any of my books, on the side of helping people heal who've been victimized in whatever way that happens. And there is trauma that happens to people. And some people are hurting severely at no fault of their own. No fault of their own. Okay? And as humans, we also are hurting at times because of some role we're playing in it. Maybe I hold on to a judgmental attitude that keeps me from being close to somebody. We had a caller yesterday, a young man that's trying to figure out his relationship he was in, the dating relationship is, is she just everything is great about her, and the problem's in him because he goes one after the other. And if he breaks up with her, he's gonna go find another great one and find something wrong with her and break up with her. Is the problem in him, or is the problem in that it's just not a good match? That's a good question. But see, there's an example of how sometimes a problem in a relationship, we can think that it's the other person, but really it's in our view of the other person. That we see them in a certain way that makes a relationship kind of impossible to work. I've got on headphones. They're supposed to be noise canceling. I don't know if you can hear the trucks outside, but they are going to pass. So if you can, I apologize for that. Sometimes we need to own our stuff. Carl Menninger, one of the great psychiatrists of the last century. If you've ever heard of Menninger's treatment center, hospital, so a few of them. He wrote a book back in the 70s, I think. It's called Whatever Became of Sin. It's like psychiatry and psychology, it's sort of, afraid to use the word. Well, sometimes when people are mean and unkind and snitty and judgmental and controlling and violating and arrogant and narcissistic and prideful and all of those unfaithful and lie and cheat and steal in relationships, baby, that's not just dysfunctional, that's just wrong. And you know what? If you stop doing that, then things are going to get better. Well, that's part of confession too. Because there's deep down inside, there's a part of you that knows. And so all this confessional stuff, it can be about kind of like where we're not getting it right, where we're failing and hurting. It could be about where we're really getting it wrong. And we know we need to change. I need to stop that behavior. It's going to hurt me or hurt somebody else, or it's just wrong. And come clean. So here's what I want you to do. Find a good old confessional space, or 2 or 3 or 4. Gosh, there's nothing better. I mean, there are things better, but you know what I mean? It's just to have people that you can be so, gosh, I just screwed up and so bad. Why did I think that? Or why did I do that? Or why did I? And you talk about it and you process it and you're accepted and you're loved. That's what a good recovery group is. People walk in and they confess. And everybody goes, they clap. They don't shame them. And they get better. So there you go. Let's go for it. Let's go open up somewhere and get honest.